Righty. See, it doesn't look like we have anybody in yet. That's okay. Kind of sparse. People signed up. Right. Give it a second here. See if anybody pops in. Man, these short answer one. Oh, it's weird focusing going on. I'm gonna tweet out that I'm live. Actually, we'll see if that draws some folks in. I am live. I'm streaming right now. Oh, hey, we got one person in. All right. All right. Hello. We're just gonna wait just a second to see if anybody else pops in before I kind of get rolling. So we'll see. We got a few people registered. We'll see who pops back in. And we'll kind of just go from there, I think. We'll just go from there. Okay. Just a minute. Wait till 8:05. We'll get rolling. Oh, I should put on my Fiveable pen. Boom. Killing it. All right, I'm tired of waiting. So let's just go ahead and get rolling with it. And I'm hoping people are just going to kind of pop in as we're going. But the purpose of this stream is to go over the short answer question portion of the AP exam. I also want to talk a little bit about the layout of the exam itself. This is the first video where we're actually talking about the fundamentals of what the exam actually looks like, as opposed to just content, which we've been doing for the last month. All September, we've been hitting content. This is the first non-content stream that we've done. So I want to talk about what the exam actually looks like because it is unique, especially compared to something like AP Human Geo, AP Psychology, AP Government. It is very similar to AP US History and pretty similar to AP World History. But it is different from those other social studies, and then certainly like the other AP exams like AP Laying, Lit, obviously like Chem, AP Physics, things like that. So what we're going to do first and foremost is I just want to kind of talk about the exam itself. So I do have some slides here that I can go ahead and pop over to. And the slides are really short. We're going to be spending a lot of time actually on other stuff. We'll be spending some time talking about looking at the College Board website. We'll be spending some time looking at sample questions. But I do have some slides, so we can go ahead and I can share my screen, go into a Chrome tab, short answer questions, boom, chakalaka. Okay. That is not what I wanted to do. Back it on up. Present your name. There we go. This is what I wanted to do. All right. So acing the short answer questions. That is really what we're going to be focusing on now, is how can we do everything in our power to get maximum points for the short answer questions. All right. The short answer questions themselves, I think, are probably the simplest part of the exam. And they're my favorite part of the exam because they tend to be so easy. Easy comparatively in terms of having to understand how they function. All right. This exam isn't, the AP Euro exam is different. Okay, I'll just say that. It's different from most tests. It's different from from how we usually have a social studies or a history test. But I think the short answer questions tend to be a little bit more straightforward. But I want to look at what we're going to be looking at today. All right, so this is the schedule for this stream. So I'll be introducing kind of what I've been doing, introducing what we're going to be talking about. I want to do an overview of the exam, short answer question deep dive, examples of questions, response examples, and then possibly a multiple choice overview if we have time. I really am going to be honest. I didn't know how long the stream was actually going to take. I didn't know if we would get through this in 30 minutes or if I would spend a full hour just talking about short answer questions. So if we have time, I do want to kind of talk a little bit about multiple choice because multiple choice is more complicated than short answer questions. But when we're looking at what the AP exam actually really is, it's broken up into 4 sections. All right, 55 multiple choice questions, 3 short answer questions, 1 document-based question, and 1 long essay question. All right, that's also the order of the exam. Okay, and the question is, why is it considered to be so difficult? And that really has to do with the fact that that it's just a pretty strenuous exam. It's a pretty strenuous exam, and then on top of that, it also tends to be a different format than anything that most students have been used to. Okay, and that's really the long and short of it, is that this is just different. All right, this is different than your average history test. This is different than the AP Human Geo exam. It's just a different beast. All right. So this is a rough overview, but I want to actually go over to the College Board website and look at what this actually really looks like. Okay. So if you go to the AP Students page for AP European History exam, this is actually a great page. I've talked about this before, but you can navigate through this. And let me share my screen with you guys here. Here we go. So this is what the page actually really looks like here, and you guys can access this all, right from College Board. Just type in AP European History, and then you get the AP Students section, and this is what it looks like. And it just gives a nice overview of the course. Also, a reminder that our exam date for this is Wednesday, May 6th at noon. But then, of course, you have our units, our 9 units, and you can get a nice little drop down, and it talks about the different topics as well as how much is covered on the exam. Although this is not super helpful because all of them say 10 to 15% of the score. So there you go. But we need to look at the about the exam portion. Okay. So the exam itself, the duration is 3 hours and 15 minutes. This tends to be more than anything else longer. All right. Very, very rarely is it actually only going to last for 3 hours and 15 minutes. I mean, that's just the reality, is that for a variety of reasons, it gets started late. You have a break thrown in there that might run over. You have people explaining instructions, or you have your moderators explaining instructions. There is just so many reasons and so many little additions of time that add up that make this last closer to 4 hours. Okay. I always tell my students, I say you need to get there early. Okay. It starts at noon. I tell them to report about 11:15. And then last year, for example, an exam was finishing up, so they hung out in the cafeteria and did some studying. And that's the other point, is that oftentimes you're going to have an exam in your test room before it actually gets started. So it might just get started late. So I always tell them, I say, look, you need to get there early, and you need a plan for your parents to pick you up, because 9 times out of 10, this is going past when school lets out. We get out at 3:45. My first year teaching, they went until 4:15. All right. So I always tell them, I say, hey, you guys need to make sure that you're arranged for a ride back home. And I think last year it was the same way. They got out about 4. So that's that. 3 hours and 15 minutes. But let's go down and look at the exam components. Okay. So first, starting with multiple choice here, 55 questions. You have 55 minutes to get these questions done. All right, 55 minutes to get these 55 questions done. This accounts for 40% of that 1 through 5 score. All right, 40% of that 1 through 5 score. It's a significant amount. All right. Now, the way that these questions are actually set up, and I have an example here that I'll go ahead and pop over to. All right. The way that these questions are actually set up is that they have a stimulus material. And then questions that go along with that stimulus material. So we can pop over to, let's pop over to AP Classroom, share. All right, so this is a good example of one. This is from AP Classroom, okay? And you can see that there's a stimulus material here. Crimes record in court sessions, the religious court in Calvinist Nimes, France, 1561 to 1563. And 1578 to 1583. So we have a chart here. We have a graph, and then we have questions that go along with it. Okay, but it could also be something like this, where it is a written primary source that there are then questions that go along with it too. All right, so there's multiple different ways that these can be set up, but there's always going to be some level of what they call a stimulus material. There's always going to be some level of what they call stimulus material, and then questions that go along with it. Anywhere from like, wrong screen. Anywhere from like 3 to 5 questions that actually go along with it. Okay, so that's multiple choice. Like I said, if we have time, we'll pop over and talk about that a little bit. But if we don't, then obviously we won't. So it says the questions, multiple choice section cover typically 3 to 4 questions based on the same stimulus. On the same stimulus material. The questions will include 1 or more sources to respond to, such as primary, secondary text, images, for example, art, photos, posters, cartoons, charts, and maps. You'll be asked to analyze the provided source and analyze the historical developments and process described in the source. And that's the thing with these multiple choice questions is that there tend to be 2 types of questions. There tend to be a question that is based 100% on the stimulus material, asking you a specific question about the stimulus material. And there tend to be questions that have really not a whole lot to do with actually the stimulus material themselves. They'll be within the same time frame. So like the stimulus material about the crimes committed in these Calvinist courts in Nimes, France. It might have a question about French Huguenots or French Calvinists, right? So within the same realm, but it might not really have anything to do with the multiple choice question. All right. So that's really the types of multiple choice questions that you get. Like I said, one, we're going to have a whole entire stream about multiple choice. But on top of that, we'll also, I'll also talk a little bit about this at the end if I get some time. All right. So section 1B, short answer questions. All right. It's called 1B because you'll do the multiple choice. 55 minutes are up. You'll be moved on right to the short answer questions. Okay. So there's no break between multiple choice and short answer. You have 40 minutes to do 3 multiple choice questions. Now, you're going to be pressed for time probably during the course of this whole entire exam. A place that you absolutely won't be pressed for time, hopefully, fingers crossed, is in the short answer section. Okay. The short answer section, they give you more than enough time. Okay. They give you 40 minutes to answer 3 short answer questions. In my mind, that is plenty. I always tell my students, I say 10 minutes per question. 10 minutes per question. That's 30 total minutes. Okay. 30 total minutes. And that in my eyes is plenty of time. So with that, you'll have 30 minutes at the end that you can then, or you'll have 10 minutes at the end, that you can then go back and you can dive into the rereading and revising portion. Okay. Give me just 1 second. Pop out of this. I just want to make sure all is well. Okay. Save. That the microphone was functioning as it should. Going over to the Chrome tab, AP students. Here we go. All right. Yeah. So like I said, you really should have plenty of time to do the short answer questions. I I mean, the way that I like to teach the short answer is I give short answer almost right away. Test number one, you give short answer and you go ahead and you set those time restraints. And this is something, if you're studying yourself, set time restraints for yourself, especially with short answer questions. You'll be surprised how quickly you get good at doing short answer questions quick. Okay. Now, going back over here, let's look at what these questions actually look like. In short answer sections, you'll write answers to questions in your test booklet. Some questions include text, images, graphs, or maps. All right. So just like the multiple choice, some of these short answer questions will have a stimulus material attached. Now, there are 4 short answer questions that College Board is actually going to be giving to you. You will only be doing 3. All right. Question 1 and question 2 are required. Question 3 and question 4, you choose between the 2. All right. Question 1 includes 1 or 2 secondary sources and focuses on historical development or processes between 1600 to 2001. Roughly the whole course, okay? Obviously, 1600, that's towards the latter half of period 1, towards the end of period 1. But you'll Reformation and Wars of Religion is fair game in that, okay? Renaissance is probably a little bit out of the scope there, but still. It's effectively the whole course. Same thing with 2001. I mean, there's not much that we talk about past 2001. Okay. So that's that. So that is focusing on secondary source where you're looking at historical developments. Question 2 includes 1 primary source that focuses on historical developments, again, from that same time period, 1600 to 2001. Again, effectively the whole class. But this is a primary as opposed to secondary source. These 2 questions are required. You have to do them. Question 3 and question 4, that's where you get to choose a little bit, okay? Question 3 and question 4, again, it's going to focus on historical developments. All right, question 3 is going to be focused between 1450 and 1648. That's period 1. Or it's going to be focused between 1648 and 1815. That's period 2. All right. Whereas question 4 is going to be focused between period 3 and period 4, 1815 to 1914, 1914 to the present. All right. So question 1 is going to be a question about period 1 or period 2. Question 4 is going to be about either period 3 or period 4. All right. However, here you're not going to have a stimulus material. Okay. It's just going to be rote knowledge and information. All right. That's it. Now, why I actually think this is an awesome system. I think that this gives us students a lot of choice over their short answer question experience, I guess I'll say. And what I mean by that is I have some students every year that are like horrified of period 4 or period 1 or these specific time periods. And so the fact that they get some choice, that actually really helps set minds at ease. Okay. So that's something to consider, is that if you're particularly strong at period 1, know that you're probably going to be given a bone at some point in this exam. All right. And that's a good way. I mean, that's just a good way to lift spirits a little bit. All right. And just know that there will be something on this exam that you will be super confident on. But you're watching Fiveable, so you're going to be good regardless. All right. And real quick, I want to talk a little bit about Fiveable, more broad, or a promotion that Fiveable is running right now. You get 3 days free for Fiveable when you sign up using the code HIGH5able. Okay. 3 days free for Fiveable Plus using the code HIGH5able. All right. That has everything from past streams to notes to handouts to PowerPoints to all this information. Okay. So use that login code. Now, that's my plug for the stream. But going back to what we were just talking about. All right. So you have a choice, period 3 or period 4. All right. Now with these short answer questions, and actually real quick, I want to talk about the free response, but the free response absolutely deserves its own video, because this is really where things get tricky, because it's just a totally different style of writing. Your document-based question is 60 minutes. Your long essay question is 40 minutes. Your document-based question, you're writing an argumentative essay using given stimulus materials. That's why it's called document-based question, because you're given documents. Long essay question, you're creating an argumentative essay where you are not giving stimulus materials, just a question. All right. DBQ is 25%, LEQ is 15% for a total of 40. All right. So the short answer question, generally speaking, is the long essay question is worth less, but in terms of sections, the short answer question, it's only worth 20%, which isn't a crazy amount. But I will tell you, and I promise you this, short answer questions can save your butt. All right. If you do well in the short answer questions, you're going to be in really good shape going into those written questions. All right. So the short answer questions, while they are only worth 20%, they are still very, very important. Okay. Now let's focus back in on the short answer questions more specifically. All right. So let's go over back to my handy dandy. So let me my handy dandy PowerPoint over here. Okay. And we'll head over to part 2, or to the next slide of the exam. So part 2 of the exam. All right. As I've said, a lot of this stuff I've said part 1 and 2 are required. Part 3 and 4, or question 3 and 4, you have some choice in. But here's the thing with the short answer questions. Okay. Your short answer questions, they're going to be a question. Okay. But that question is always going to have 3 things, 3 parts that the College Board will be looking for. There are 3 answers that you are going to be having to give. Okay. No more, no less. And so on top of that, each short answer question is out of 3 points. That means you can get a total of 9 points for short answer questions. Okay. That also means, like with everything on this exam, it's either a you get it or you don't get it. There's no partial credit for short answer questions. If you only answer 2 out of those 3 parts of a single short answer question correct, you only get 2 points. Okay. There's no I almost got through the 3rd point. You only get 2. All right. But like I said, I personally think this is the easiest part of the exam because it's just so straightforward. All right. And that's really it. It's very clear and cut. It's really hard to get confused by the rubric and mess it up. All right. It just is. Okay. So the short answer question, I always say, if you stumble on the short answer question and you don't answer it, or you run out of time and you don't answer it, you're leaving points on the table. All right. You should walk away feeling good about your short answer questions. Okay. But you might not necessarily feel that way, and that's totally okay. If you feel better about the DBQ than the short answer questions, more power to you. Okay. That's totally fine. And just my personal opinion, I think they're pretty straightforward. I think they're a very straightforward part of the exam. Okay. So let's actually take a look at what some of these short answer questions look like. All right. And we are going to look at last year's AP exam to look at, well, not the whole thing, but we're going to look at the written portion of the AP exam to see what those short answer questions actually really look like. Okay. So if you type in, here it is. If you type in AP European History exam and you scroll down, you're going to see 2019 free response questions. It's going to be a PDF that pops up in another window. And here they are. These are most of the AP European History free response questions. Okay. Now I know there are other forms of the exam that float around that a lot of people don't ever see or hear about, that never get released. Okay. But this is probably what, if you know someone who took the exam last year, this is probably the questions that they gave, or they responded to. That's not right. That they responded to. Okay. And these are made available publicly for everybody, usually a day or 2 after the exam. If you take the exam on a Friday, they'll be available Monday. We're taking it on a Wednesday. I would expect them to be available at least by Friday. Okay. So they are made available to everybody. All right. I did not acquire these by nefarious means. These are publicly available. All right. So let's look at them. The AP European History free response questions. This is everything but the multiple choice. All right. Unfortunately, and it really kind of grinds my gears a little bit. I can kind of understand why, but unfortunately, College Board doesn't release multiple choice. It sucks. I'm irritated because I want their multiple choice questions, but they just don't, because I assume they probably reuse some. But they will release all the written questions. So we can go ahead and take a look at them here. Okay. So here we are right off the bat. Here is our short answer question. So when you open up your exam booklet in May of next year, this is what it's going to look like. Okay. And you see, you really don't have that much direction. Okay. Time 40 minutes. Okay. Directions: answer questions 1 and questions 2, and answer either question 3 and question 4. All right. Write your responses in section 1, part B, short answer response book. You must write your response to each question on the line page designated for the response. This is important, guys. Designated for the response. That's important to read directions. Each response is expected to fit within the space provided. In the response, be sure to address all parts of the questions. All parts of the questions you answer. Use complete sentences. An outline for the list alone is not accepted. You may plan your answers in this exam book, but no credit will be given for notes written in this booklet. Okay. But this is what the questions look like. All right. We see, as we said, question 1 is going to come from a secondary source. Here we have Orlando Fige's history of, or historian of people's tragedy, the Russian Revolution, 1891 to 1924, published in 1997. So very, very clearly, this is a dead giveaway. This is a secondary source. All right. So then we have the excerpt, and we have 3 parts that we have to answer, right? Always 3 parts. Now, question 1, and I believe question 2 as well, and question 3 and question 4 are very clear about those 3 parts. I will tell you right now, that is not always going to be the case. That is not always going to be the case. The AP exam might be going to that. I haven't seen anything specifically that said that this is how it's going to work, that there's always going to be a part A, part B, and part C. I know that past questions and questions that I use on my tests in class aren't going to be as clear. It might be something to the effect of explain 2 differences and 1 similarity. That's still 3 parts, right? Or something to that effect. 3 consequences, right? Always 3 parts. But for the exam here, it is pretty straightforward that there is a part A part B, and a part C. All right. So question 2, this was question 2. As we can see, this is a primary source, but is not a written primary source. It is a stimulus material in the form of a piece of art. All right. And again, we can see here, all right, this is Louis Simon Bizot. I hope that's right. I've said this before in past streams. My French is terrible. But liberty armed with the scepter of reason, striking down ignorance and fanaticism in France, 1793. So we should know by this point, or when we take the AP exam, that France 1793, that's the radical phase of the revolution, or right up against it. So we should come in, we should immediately see that, and that's where our brain should go, right? But let's look at the questions here. Describe one way in which the images expresses popular or ideas popularized during the Enlightenment. Describe one way in which the image reflects the policies of the French Revolutionary government's radical phase. Describe one way in which the ideas in the image continued to influence European political thought in 1815. Okay, so we'll see. There are 3 parts that kind of have a range of time they're being pulled from. They're not all Enlightenment, they're not all French Revolution, and they're not all post-French Revolution. They're all kind of a range, and that's something that you'll see for short answer, but also for multiple choice too. Okay. Now, one thing I want to say right now, in case I forget to mention it later, is that it is really, really important that you guys, when you're getting a question that asks you about a specifically the art, right? Describe one way in which the image expresses ideas popularized. Make sure you're referencing the piece of art. Make sure you're saying in the image we can see, X, Y, and Z, which is totally lost my train of thought. In the image, we can see X, Y, and Z, which relates to this idea popularized during the Enlightenment, right? So we're referencing the image specifically, as opposed to just saying this is an idea popularized by the Enlightenment, right? Because you really haven't answered the question at that point. If you just say this is an idea popularized by the Enlightenment that was popular in the French Revolution, you're not referencing the painting, and that's not what they're asking you to do. They're asking you to reference the painting. Okay, so just something to think about is make sure you are referencing the artwork when it asks you specifically about it. Now, if it was to say nothing about the image, if it was like describe one Enlightenment idea seen during the French Revolution, and that was part B, right? Then yeah, you're good. You don't have to reference the artwork. But if it says describe one way in which the image reflects, make sure you're talking about the image. All right. The readers want to see that. The readers, I mean, they're grading thousands of these things. They're grading them quickly. That's going to be a clear indication if they see you referencing the image specifically that you've done what you're supposed to do. All right. So just something to consider. And lastly, here we have question 3 or question 4, which is within question 3 will be within period 1 and period 2, and question 4 will be within period 3 and period 4. Okay. And we'll see no stimulus materials here. This is just content knowledge right here, just content knowledge. All right. And the AP exam can be a little bit tricky when it comes to content knowledge. All right. Because you do need to have a wide range of content knowledge. You also need to be a good writer and a good reader. All right. And you're going to get the content knowledge popping up all over the place, but it's not going to be thrown in your face. This is one of the times where content knowledge is really thrown in your face, where this is just content knowledge. Okay. Through and through. The other two questions 1 and question 2 are content knowledge as well, but in kind of a different way, if that makes sense at all. Like question 3 is asking you about an image, but you have to know about the French Revolution and the Enlightenment to really answer those questions, right? You can't just like throw spaghetti at the wall. But you'll answer either question 3 or question 4. Question 3 talking about the Protestant Reformation, period 1. Question 4 talking about early industrialization. That's period 3. Okay, so that's what the short answer questions actually really look like. And now I want to pop back over to the PowerPoint and I want to give my tips for actually answering these things. Okay, so I'm going to close this video. Let's open up my Chrome tab, Shakalaka, and we're off to the races. All right, so these are my 4 hot tips. My 4 hot tips for successfully acing the short answer questions, getting all points possible, all 9 of those points. All right, so first and foremost, read each question and choose the easiest ones to do first. You can read all 4 questions right off the bat. Find the one that you read and you're like, oh, I got this. Easy peasy. I remember this so well. Go in, knock that one out first. You'll have designated areas to answer your questions in your question book, which means you can jump around. Okay. So answer your easiest ones first, save your tougher ones for the end. All right. The reason why we save the tougher ones for the end is there's 2 big reasons. One, you want to make sure you have enough time, right? You're probably going to be spending more time with the tougher question. 2, you don't want to spend so much time with the tough questions that you neglect the easy ones, and then you're scrambling to get them done and you screw them up. All right, the easy ones, that's free points, right? That's free money. All right, so you want to make sure that you're answering those easy ones first. Okay. Secondly, keep it simple. Keep your short answer questions simple. Okay, that means you should not be answering in more than 3 to 5 sentences. All right. That's what I always tell my students. I say no more than 3 to 5 sentences, because I have some students that want to write novels for each short answer question. They want to write pages, and it's like, you don't have time for that. You only got 10 minutes per short answer question. Keep it simple. All right. Because realistically, you can answer these short answer questions in 3 sentences. There's 3 parts. All right. And they're not really looking for an amazing amount of elaboration here. They're looking for you to answer the question and move on with your life. All right. So 3 to 5 sentences is really where you should max yourself out. Maybe 6 sentences, 2 sentences per part. All right. But I think 3 to 5 is generally a good place to be. It's about a paragraph, maybe half a page. All right. So keep it simple. All right. Third point, make sure you answer all parts of the question. This might seem obvious, but you guys would be surprised, or maybe you won't be surprised, but you need to make sure you're answering all parts of the questions. On top of that, you need to make sure you're actually answering the question. All right. Make sure after you read your answers, you should think to yourself, did I actually give an answer here, or am I just talking? All right. Make sure you're actually answering all parts of the question. And just because this is short does not mean you don't need specific detail. You should still name drop. You should still be dropping artwork or written works when it's relevant. All right. You need to be as specific as you possibly can, but you need to keep it short. All right. You don't need to elaborate. Okay. Keep it simple again, but make sure you're answering all parts of the question. And my last point here is read and revise. Read and revise. Okay. So 10 minutes per question, you're left with an extra 10 minutes at the end, right? They give you 40 minutes. You should take 30 of that to write. All right. You're left with 10 minutes. Now, some students are going to use that 10 minutes as their kind of like their wiggle room, right? So they're going to spend an extra 5 minutes on 2 of the questions. You can also just use that 10 minutes to read and revise. All right. That's what I recommend, is that you read and revise. You go back and you reread your questions. So if you do them in order and you do questions 1, question 2, and question 4, those are your 3 that you answer. After you're done with 4, go back and reread 1, right? Because your brain's off of question 1 now. You've effectively got as fresh as eyes as you can possibly get in the time constraints. Go back and reread and really be critical of yourself and think, did I actually answer this question? Now, one thing I don't want you to do, and this is the big tricky part about checking your work, is I don't want you guys to go in, freak out thinking you didn't answer the question and erase everything. You don't have time for that. All right. Small changes. All right. Like if you meant to put Charles V and you actually accidentally put Charles IV. Or if you're like, oh crap, I didn't actually answer part 3. Let me quickly scribble something in here to answer part 3. But this is not I'm gonna scrap everything and restart. This is a revision. This is I'm gonna add stuff or take away 1 or 2 things, not an entire thing here. All right, in that 10 minutes, you should have plenty of time to do some quick reading and revising for your short answer questions. Okay, so those are my 4 tips. Now, what I do want to do here is I want to do 2 things. One, I want to look at kind of an infamous short answer question from 2 years ago from the 2018 exam. This is a question that I like giving my students and having them answer because they're almost 9 times out of 10 going to answer it incorrectly. All right, and I want to use that to show you why wording matters. And then the second thing I want to do is I want to quickly look at some examples and show you guys where you yourself can look at examples and look at how College Board graded and some grading notes and things like that. Okay, so we're going to go pop over to the 2018 exam. Okay, we're going to go pop over to the 2018 exam. Okay, so I'm going to close out to this. We're going to go to the Chrome tab. Okay, so this is when you type in AP European History of the Exam and AP Central, this is what pops up. Okay, and this is, again, another overview of the exam format. And then these are the 2019 questions like I talked about. These are the scoring guidelines. We'll look at that in just a second, but I want to scroll down here if I can. Oh, nope, it's only got 2019. Practice your response questions. I just had it. Here it is. Okay. 2018 for your response questions. This is what I wanted to look at here. And now I have to pop over to it again and reshare the screen. Sorry about this, guys. Boom. All right. The 2018 AP European History for your response questions. This is really what I want to spend some time with, okay? So, again, similar format. All right. I think that this set of questions is actually really, really solid. I pretty much use all of these on my tests. So if any students are watching this, there you go. That's a free one for you. But the question I want to focus on is this question right here. Question number 3. This question, in my mind, in my eyes, is just so tricky. All right. Tricky almost in a good way, though. I'm not really too upset about the way that College Board words this, just because I think it's a really, really good question. But it is very tricky. So let's look at it here. All right. This is the period 1 or period 2 question. This is right, question 3. And let's look at it. Answer A, B, and C. A, describe one reason for Martin Luther's critique of the Catholic Church in the early 1500s. B, describe one Catholic response in the 1500s to Luther's critique. C, explain how Luther's protests contributed to social change in Europe in the period 1517 to 1600. All right, so a few things going on here. One, if you were to just glance at this, I know that I would be like, oh, easy peasy. This is an easy question, okay? And it is. It's actually like a pretty straightforward question. But there are some nuanced things here that can really, really trip you up, okay? And a lot of it comes down to wording. The wording here is very particular, especially for part B. Describe one Catholic response in the 1500s to Luther's critique. Students always want to say excommunication or deed of worms, 100%. Okay. And the reason that's wrong is because it's not asking you about the Catholic response to Luther. It's asking you about the Catholic response to Luther's critique. It's picky. I know. But that's the thing, is you have to pay attention to wording. What's the Catholic response to Luther's critique? It's the Council of Trent. Okay? It's the Council of Trent. It's the reformation of corrupted practices in the church, but the reaffirmation of church doctrine. Through and through, it's the Council of Trent. Okay? And that's the tricky thing here. And that's why I think this question is so good at teaching that. All right. And so that's what I always do, is every year I throw this question at my students and I'd say nothing. I just say, all right, guys. And usually what I'll do is I'll throw it on like a board for a warm up, and I'll say, all right, you guys have 10 minutes to answer this. Go ahead and get started. And then we'll trade and they'll grade each other's, and then we'll go over them. And it's 9 out of every 10 students will put excommunication or deed of worms for B, which is a really good thought. That is how the Catholic Church attempted to respond to Luther. But it's not what the question's asking you, okay? And so that's something that we really need to think about, and we really need to consider here, is that wording is very, very important for these questions. It's also very important for the whole exam, right? Multiple choice especially too. Pay attention to wording. All right, DBQ and LEQ is going to be a little bit more on the nose. It's not going to be kind of quite as nitpicky, just because the questions tend to be a little bit more broader. But for like short answer questions and multiple choice, where it is that very nitpicky specific thing that they're looking for, you got to make sure you're paying attention to wording here, folks. Now, I do want to look at something else here. All right, so if we go back and we look at the exams, you'll see the exam page there with the links to those PDFs of the actual free response questions. You'll see something that says scoring notes. Okay. Scoring notes are really, really great here as a resource, or scoring guidelines, excuse me, as a resource for you guys. A lot of really good stuff on the College Board website. Actually, it's a good resource for test prep, honestly. But I will let's go ahead and share that screen, and I will show you guys exactly what that looks like here. Okay. So if we go over to scoring guidelines, okay, these scoring guidelines have a lot of really, really good stuff here. All right. So first of all, it jumps right in and it tells you how this was scored, 0 to 3 points. All right. You get 3 points if the response accomplishes all 3 tasks set by the question, right? Kind of like what I just said. All right. So I want to scroll down to question 2 to question 3. Okay. 1 point for describing one reason in Martin Luther's critique of the Catholic Church, 1 point for describing Catholic response to Luther's critique, and 1 point for explaining Luther's protest contributed. Okay. And here we go. This is one, they give you a very detailed overview of the responses to Luther's critique, but they will also give you a bulleted list of exactly what some of these points could actually be. All right, so we can look at some of what some of these actually really look like. Sale of indulgences, the use of Latin language in church rituals, the absence of explicit references in the Bible, papal appointment, yada, yada, yada. Okay, so this one's pretty straightforward. This is all those problems that Luther had. All right. But another thing that I really like that it does is it gives you an overview of like, what are some wrong answers here, right? So Luther said that the church was corrupt. Holy moly. The amount of times that I've heard students say, why did Luther critique the church? Well, it was corrupt. How? In what way? You can't just say the word corrupt and expect to be correct here. And in fact, this is one of the examples right here, is you just can't say that the church was corrupt and get away with it. You have to clarify. Okay, Luther attacked the church in his famous 95 Theses. This is true, but again, doesn't answer the question. All right, answer response B. Boom, right after that, Council of Trent, right? It's all Council of Trent. You can even talk about religious orders. You can talk about missionary work. You can talk about the Jesuits, right? You can talk about St. Teresa of Avila, right? You can talk about all of these guys, all of these things, but you have to talk about reformation of the church. You got to talk about counter-reformation. They're not asking you about the Diet of Worms, and they're not asking you about any of that stuff, okay? And then lastly, the third point, how did it change? You can talk about Luther's ideas about the priesthood of all believers. Everyone should read the Bible, and how that encouragement of education, the use of vernacular language that's spreading to various groups, and the building of nationalism, right? There's a lot that you can talk about there. Okay. But this is a really, really great tool. All right. This is a really great tool, especially guys, when you want to do some practice at home by yourself. I know that a lot of people that watch these, they're still self-studying, which is awesome. That's amazing. And this is a really, really, this is, I think, a challenging course to self-study. So it's really, it says a lot about you that if you're self-studying for this, that you want to undertake this. I think it's amazing. One of the things that you'll have to do is learning to just practice and grade yourself, and just being very, very critical of yourself, which I know is like, can be super, super hard to do. A good way to do that though is to do past pre-response questions, and then go and see how College Board graded them. And you say, oh yeah, I did say that they excommunicated him for Part B. That's incorrect, right? I didn't read that right. And there you go. You've effectively did what I do, right? Which is, I mean, that's what the role of the teacher is to say, hey, this was incorrect. Okay. So you can there are absolutely, you can do that. You can grade yourself. You just have to use the right tools. All right. And I think that the tools that College Board give you, they're there. All right. They're just giving them to you. They're giving you all this information. And you just got to go out and use them. Okay. But that's the short answer questions. And like I said, they're pretty straightforward. There's not much more to say about them. 3 parts, answer all 3 parts in a short, concise paragraph, 3 to 5 sentences. You're golden. Make sure you actually answer the question. Make sure that you are reading and you're reading for exactly what they're asking of you. Okay. And that's pretty much it. And that is pretty much all I've got to say about short answer questions. Like I said, they are readily available for you guys online, the past ones. So I would recommend going and checking those out. But yeah, that's pretty much all I got to say about short answer questions. We have about 10 or so minutes left. So what I can do is I can briefly talk about multiple choice, if that's something that would interest people. Because multiple choice, I think, and short answer questions, they share a lot of similarities, and that short answer questions are asking you to select the best answer as opposed to writing the best answer. Whereas DBQ and LEQ, that's where things get a little bit different and a little bit trickier. So I can briefly talk about multiple choice really quick, and then we can wrap things up a little bit. So just briefly talking about multiple choice, and like I said, we'll have an entire stream about this. I figured that short answer questions wouldn't take a full hour, so I wanted to have something at the end. So looking back at this, let's go ahead and we can look back at let's find a good one. Oh, I know what I'll do here. All right, so I am going to actually share a screen of this is actually a, yeah, here we go. So this is a test, or the quiz I'm actually giving tomorrow. This is the Reformation test or quiz. And this is a AP style multiple choice question that I will be throwing onto the exam. Okay. And so this is what they look like for the most part, generally speaking. They will have some stimulus material. All right. They will have some site or source for that stimulus material, so you know where it came from. And they will have questions that follow it. Here we have 3 questions that follow it. All right. So if we're looking at this here, instructions from monks from the Archbishop of Mainz in 1517. So even if you don't know who the Archbishop of Mainz is, which you should, 1517, this has to do with Protestant Reformation, right? The Archbishop of Mainz, he's the one that orders Jean Tetzel to go off and sell indulgences. And then we have questions that follow this. Okay. And these questions are going to be, they're either going to reference the source directly, or they are going to be asking you questions from the time period, right? So 1517, they might ask you a question like, what did Luther write in response to the selling of indulgences, right? That's kind of a simplistic question, but that's an example. They're going to give you some questions that are going to be more in directly asking you to read and analyze the source. All right. So it might say, it might have something about like which of the following quotes would best support, or which of the following people would best support the given source, which of the following quotes would best go along with the attached source. So things like that. But overall, I think that these, like I said, these are very similar to short answer questions, and that they are asking you either to bring in outside information, or they're asking you to reference and look at the stimulus material directly. But like I said, we're going to have a whole entire stream dedicated to short answer questions. So I don't want to spend a crazy amount of time talking about it. But I am about to just wrap up here. I hope that this helps. I hope that this was effective for you guys. Like I said, the short answer questions, they are easily the simplest part of the exam in my opinion, just because they're so straightforward. 3 parts, answer all 3 parts, you're good to go. Okay. But like I said, the big thing with that is just practice with them. If your teacher, if you are in a class, if your teacher hasn't given you short answer questions, you can maybe ask, hey, like, when are we going to see short answer questions? I'd love to practice with those. But hopefully your teacher is already getting you guys started with that. If you're self-studying, again, go to the College Board website and do some of those past ones and grade yourself. Also, most exam prep books are going to have examples of short answer questions. So there's lots of resources for you guys out there. But I think that is going to be it for me. What I'll do is I want to go ahead and I'll plug my I will pop over and I will do this. So this is of course the social media stuff for both Fiveable, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. Check them out. But also my Twitter there at Mr. Kuklik. So you give both of us a follow. And like I said, Fiveable is running a special now where you get 3 days free of Fiveable Pro, Fiveable Plus, excuse me, at High Fiveable. That's the code you're going to put in when you go to fiveable.me/plus. You'll enter in the code High Fiveable, get 3 days of Plus free. Lots and lots of great resources, especially for those that are self-studying. Okay, highly recommend it. This stream will be up there as well, so if you missed part of it or could only catch a second of it, go check it out. Be on the lookout for our other streams that we do when we cover multiple choice and DBQ and LBQ. And then, of course, be sure to tune in for our content streams that we'll be doing 2 days a week. Okay, the next one will be on Thursday, so please tune in for that one. But that is it for me. Have a good rest of your night, guys, and have a good rest of your week. And I will catch you all next time.